Machiavelli met thousands of powerful men, kings, cardinals, generals, men who held the fate of nations in their hands. And only one of them, only one, did he hold up as the model for everyone who would ever take power. Not a saint, not a hero. A man whose name, 500 years later, still means danger. This is the story of how he rose faster than anyone thought possible. How he did one thing so cold it silenced an entire province. And the single mistake, the one thing he could not control, that destroyed all of it in a single week. Stay to the end, because his last lesson, the one he confessed on his deathbed, is the one Machiavelli never forgot. And it is the one that should change how you think about your own life. His name was Cesare Borgia, and his rise began with the most dangerous gift there is, borrowed power. His father had become one of the most powerful men in the world, the head of the church itself. And he used that power to hand his son everything: armies, titles, fortresses, gold. Most men, given that, would simply enjoy it. They would wear the titles and spend the gold and believe the power was theirs. But Machiavelli, who watched him closely and wrote it down, saw the trap underneath the gift. A man who climbs on another man's strength, he warned, climbs fast, but he stands on ground that can vanish overnight. Borgia knew it too. He understood that power given to you is power that can be taken from you. And so, from the very first day, he began doing something almost no one does. He started turning borrowed power into power of his own. Here is the lesson before the story, because it is the spine of everything that follows. Anything you depend on someone else to give you is not yours. It is on loan. The job your patron handed you, the status your family gave you, the platform someone built for you. The man who knows this builds his own foundation underneath the gift, while the gift still holds. The man who forgets it wakes up one day standing on nothing. So Borgia set his sights on a province called the Romagna, a region drowning in robbery, in blood feuds, in murder. Its weak lords had let it rot for generations, until no one was safe on its roads. And here he understood something most leaders are too soft or too vain to accept. The people did not need to be loved. They needed order. Machiavelli built an entire chapter of his book on this exact question. Is it better to be loved or to be feared? And his answer, in chapter 17, is colder than people expect. Love, he writes, is held by a bond of obligation, which men, being self-interested, break the very moment it serves them. But fear is held by the dread of punishment, and that, he says, never lets go. He is not telling you to be cruel for its own sake. He is telling you a hard truth about human nature. Affection is fragile, and it bends to convenience. But order, once it is real, holds. You see this everywhere, once you know to look. The leader desperate to be liked, who lets standards slip to keep the peace, and slowly loses the room. And the one who is respected, even resented, but trusted to keep things working, and keeps it for decades. Borgia chose the second. He chose to be the one who delivered, over the one who was adored. So Borgia sent one man into the Romagna to deliver that order. A hard, efficient, merciless man named Ramiro de Orco. And he gave him something most leaders are afraid to give anyone: absolute power. In a short time, Ramiro did the impossible. He crushed the chaos. He hunted down the bandits and hanged them. He forced the entire region, by sheer terror, into peace. And for the first time in living memory, ordinary people could trade and travel and sleep through the night. Borgia had made himself the source of something they could no longer live without. But peace had a price. Every execution had a face. Every harsh act had a name attached to it. And that name was Ramiro's, not Borgia's. The people obeyed Ramiro, and the people hated Ramiro. Borgia had bought order and let another man pay for it in blood. This is the structure underneath the whole story, so hold on to it. He did not become essential by demanding it. He became essential by solving the one thing they could not solve themselves. If you understand why he chose order before applause, type it below, order before applause. Now Borgia faced the problem every leader eventually faces. The dirty work was done, but the resentment it created was pointing straight at the throne. The province was calm, and the man who ruled it was hated. A lesser ruler would have defended his servant, or made excuses, or simply hoped the anger would fade. Borgia did something else, something Machiavelli recorded in cold, exact detail. One winter morning, the people of Cesena woke and walked into the public square, and there they found Ramiro de Orco, executed. Beside the body lay a block of wood and a bloodied knife. The message needed no words. The cruelty was never the prince. It was the servant, and the servant had now been punished for you. Machiavelli's verdict on that morning is one of the most chilling lines he ever wrote. The barbarity of this spectacle, he said, left the people at once satisfied and stunned. Read that again. Satisfied and stunned. Borgia kept every bit of the order Ramiro had built, and he shed every bit of the hatred Ramiro had earned. In a single morning, he became both the punisher and the avenger. This is history they never teach you, written by the one man who was actually there to see it. Subscribe, because this channel is for the few who study power instead of being moved by it. But here is what almost no one understands about power. The moment you build real order, you create enemies, because order takes something away from someone. The captains who had helped Borgia rise began to fear how strong he had become. And fear, in men with swords, turns into conspiracy. They began to plot against him. So Borgia became the fox. Machiavelli has a famous image for this in chapter 18. A prince, he writes, must be both the lion and the fox. The lion, to frighten the wolves. The fox, to recognize the traps. The lion alone is too easily snared. The fox alone is too weak to stand. You need both. And in this moment, Borgia needed the fox. He pretended to forgive the men who had plotted against him. He offered them friendship. He spoke of old loyalty and forgotten quarrels. And he invited them to meet him as allies in a town called Senegalia. They came. They embraced him like a brother. By the next morning, every one of the conspirators was dead. He had smiled at them while he prepared the trap, and then he sprang it all at once on every enemy in a single stroke. This is the lesson, and it is an uncomfortable one. He did not warn his enemies. He did not threaten them. He did not give them time to prepare. He let them believe they were safe right up until the moment it was over. And notice the discipline in it, because this is the part most people get wrong. The weak man, when he is wronged, tells everyone how angry he is. He threatens. He postures. He lets his enemies see the blow coming a mile away. The fox says nothing. The fox stays warm and patient and unreadable. And then the fox acts once, completely, when the other side has stopped watching. If that lesson lands, write it. Be the fox first. By now, Borgia had done what almost no one ever does. He had taken borrowed power and built, underneath it, a foundation entirely his own soldiers, loyal to him and no one else. His own laws. His own people in a province that was finally his. He had played every move correctly. He had been the lion, and he had been the fox. He had chosen order over applause and struck once, decisively, when the moment came. And yet, he knew, all of it still rested on one fragile thing: his father's life. Because the borrowed power that started it all had not fully been replaced. The church was still his shield, and his father was the church. So Borgia, careful as ever, prepared for that death. He sat by candlelight and planned for every rival, every betrayal, every move that could come, the day the old man finally died. He thought he had accounted for everything. And then fortune did the one thing he had not planned for. When his father died, Borgia himself was deathly ill, bedridden. burning with fever, hopeless. At the exact moment he needed every ounce of his strength, his own body failed him. He told Machiavelli this himself in person years later. He said that he had thought of everything that might happen on his father's death, everything, and had prepared a remedy for all of it, except for one thing, that when the death finally came, he himself would also be at the point of death. If this story is gripping you, leave a like. It costs you nothing, and it carries this to someone who needs to hear it. So let us be honest about what happened to Cesare Borgia. His power unraveled. The province slipped away. His enemies rose. And within a few short years, the man who had terrified all of Italy died, forgotten, in a minor skirmish in Spain. The man who had done almost everything right was undone by timing he could not command. And here is the question that matters. Why, knowing all of that, did Machiavelli still hold him up as the model? Not because he won. He lost. He lost everything. But because everything that was within his control, he did perfectly. He turned borrowed power into his own. He chose order over applause. He made himself indispensable. He was the lion and the fox. He struck once and decisively. What destroyed him was not a mistake. It was fortune. It was fortune, the one thing no man commands. And this is the cold comfort at the very heart of Machiavelli. He compares fortune to a flooding river. When it rages, he writes, it tears away the soil, sweeps off the trees and the buildings, and there is nothing in that moment any man can do to stand against it. You cannot stop the flood. But, he says, when the waters are calm, men can build defenses, banks and dikes and barriers, so that when the river rises again, its force is contained, and far less of it gets through. That is the whole teaching. You cannot control the flood. You can only build the banks so high that almost nothing gets through. Cesare Borgia did almost everything right and still lost it all. Sit with that, because it is the most important part of the story. Skill built his empire. A single turn of fortune took it away. Machiavelli did not study him to copy the cruelty. He studied him to answer one question, the question underneath his entire book. How much of your fate can you actually control? His answer was unsettling. Maybe half. Fortune, he guessed, governs about half of what we do and leaves the other half to us. So here is the only sane conclusion. Master that half completely and stop gambling the other. Most people do the exact opposite. They leave the controllable half to chance, no skill, no preparation, no foundation, and then they pray that fortune is kind. You will not. The same boldness Machiavelli praises in that flooding river belongs to the prepared. Fortune, he says, favors the bold, but only the bold who built the banks first. So build the foundation no one handed you. Become the one they cannot replace. Be the lion and the fox. And when the river rises, and one day it will, let it find that you were ready. If you are done leaving your life to chance, type it below. Build the banks. Subscribe, and the next story will be waiting. And remember what the flood taught a man who thought he had planned for everything. You do not survive by being the strongest in the room. You survive by being the one who prepared for the day the room turns on you.